Welcome to Roll for Crit. Today we are exploring a brand new game that's on Kickstarter right now called Exploration. All players in this game have their own spaceport and they're trying to do their best to develop technology and ships and explore the near regions of space from Earth better than anybody else. Each player will select their spaceport, which comes with some unique starting bonuses. It also has a track for experience points that you can spend as the game goes on, and this technology tree, which will be gradually going up as the game goes on, giving you different bonuses and abilities. There are a number of different ways to gain points in this game, but at the very start, your big ones that you will know that you can start off with are these secret goals. You've got one primary mission, and you've got 3 secondary missions. Now, these are just going to give you credits during the game, so they're just little bonuses to help you as you go. This is your primary one, so at the end, it will actually give you victory points that could help you win the game.
This game lasts about 8 rounds, with each of those rounds split up into 2 phases, a sort of planning Earth phase and the space phase. During the planning phase, you will receive 5 credits, and then you'll have multiple options for you to do in an order of your choice. The first one is the maneuver cards. You can buy one of these, so for that turn, your ships can act differently than they're planned on the board. We actually, by the way, there'll be miniatures here. These are prototypes. Will have stands and stuff, so they actually stand well and nice. But they have different stats, but these allow you to sort of allow them to cheat a little bit in how they move if you need to get to a specific place. You can buy development cards. These will give you bonuses, but they have tech levels. So you can only buy certain tech levels. Like I cannot access this tech level 3 until I've hit the 3rd level on the tech tree. After that, we're going to go to the ships, where you actually buy pretty much the blueprints to build these ships. Just like the development cards, they also have a tech level. They'll be the same model for different tech levels too, so make sure to keep an eye. Like this is an early shield, but there'll be a more advanced shield later on. And once you buy that, you will add it to your inventory, where another action is building them. What this entails is actually taking a model of the ship and putting it in your spaceport. Not only that, you have the option to pay a little extra to add modules, which you probably want to do since they're really how you score the majority of your points. Telescopes, rovers, and they go on different places on the board, which can affect your secret goals or just generally more victory points. We'll talk a little bit more about them when we hit the space phase, but the idea is each ship has cargo holds that you can load them into, and once you get them into space, hopefully you can drop them off where you need to. Finally, there's the tech tree. You can either spend an experience to move up on the tech tree or for credit. While they give bonuses, the main idea is to make sure you can get development and spaceship cards ahead of time, except for maybe when you hit the end of 3 when you get some really more advanced abilities.
Phase 2 is when you actually get the chance to play around with all these ships that you've been working to build and put onto the board. The first thing that you can do with the ship is launch it. So you simply move it from its spaceport out into the next starting space. Normally, they cannot move again for the rest of that turn. You have to wait. Some ships have different abilities. They may be able to get around that kind of a thing, but in general, they're stuck there. Once you have some that are actually out and about, then you can move them. Now, they each have a velocity, which is their speed, essentially. So this guy right here is a 6. So you could just move it its full 6. That's a standard movement action. And they have to go in the direction of your orbit. Depending on what your spaceport tells you, you can only move in one direction or the other, counterclockwise or clockwise. So this guy might move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but maybe you don't want to exactly move that amount or in that direction. If you're not happy with necessarily moving the full amount of that velocity, there are some other things that you can do. You can spend an energy to either move under the full amount, spend an energy to just simply stay still if you're happy with where you are, or you might even change your orbit. You might reverse the ship's orbit to go the other direction, or move up or down on these tracks here. These spaces on the board can affect you. If you pass over one of these, you get a credit, so that's nice. If you land on a space that has this symbol on it, you get an experience point, also nice, but you gotta look out for these symbols. These mean you have to draw a hazard card, and those are pretty much always bad. I think they are all just pretty much bad. You don't want those, but if you do get one, you can spend 3 experience points to avoid it if you have those points to spend. If you land on the same space as another ship, then the two ships have a collision. They both lose a resistance point, which is essentially your health, and you get an experience point if you manage to do this to another player. If you actually fully knock out another player's ship, you get a frag token, which is worth even more victory points. So they do reward you for some aggression in this game. You might want to just attack other people's ships. And then the other big thing during this phase are these modules. You're going to want to drop them off at different locations. Depending on which modules you have, like we said, they can go to different areas of the board. So this right here wants you to go to Mars. So if you manage to make it over to the Mars area adjacent to one of these symbols with in these spots right here, you could make a test to see if you could drop this off on that space. You would add your maneuverability level to whatever your result is from this die. Some of them are blank, some of them have 1, some of them have 2, and there's going to be a chart which will tell you what numbers you need for each module. If you meet the level that you need, you get to drop it off there. You put one of your cubes so everybody knows that that's yours, and you're going to get points for that at the end of the game, or even possibly for one of your secondary missions or something else like that. If you fail, then you don't get to drop it off, and you have to try again another time. You can also get more of those modules from your spaceport, or even transfer them between your own ships as an option.
So that's basically how the game plays. We should mention that this is the second Kickstarter. They had one before, and the reason we want to bring that up is because they had a few different rules, so make sure you're looking at the newer Kickstarter stuff to understand how the game works. It definitely has an interesting twist of like very realistic with putting modules, the living conditions on Mars and rovers on the moon, but the ships are very much more sci-fi futuristic.
Yeah, there are lasers, there are some crazy things going on. Like we said, there's space combat. Basically both players, however many players you have, we usually have 2, will go through all their actions over 8 turns, then you count up all your points, and again, it's from area control, depending on where you are on the board, your secret missions, and maybe a few other things that you've accomplished along the way.
Such as ramming your ship into other ships.
Right, that one is a big one. And yeah, it's definitely a game where you are carefully planning out your actions. You want to think about how you want to design your ships, what directions you want to focus on, which modules do you think are going to be most beneficial to you. Depending on what your orbital path is at the start or what your goals are, you may decide to go more for the Mars area or the Moon area. Also, it's important to note that once you place a module, no one else can put any on that spot. So you can put a little bit of pressure on people if you think they're going for a different area or the same area as you want to beat them to it, perhaps. So there's a lot going on. Like we said, this is all prototype, and some of these rules I think are still not 100% finalized. But that is the gist of it. It's you're exploring space and hurting each other.
We should also mention there is a solo mode too. It has some extra cards for you to use to give you still that challenge, even though you're by yourself. So this game can fit for 1 or more. Each station is interesting because their tech trees are pretty much the same, but the rotation and starting money and bonus may pretty much give these weird strategies you don't think about. Usually you don't think like, oh, this is obviously aggressive on it. You don't notice it until you start playing like, oh, I'm far away, and because I start off always rotating clockwise, it's much easier for me to hit this point than this point.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that plays it a little fast and loose in terms of the scientific accuracy, but I think even still, compared to a lot of other space games, if you're interested in the kind of nitty-gritty of things like the orbital paths and dropping off, lunar rovers or landers or whatever it is, depending on where you're going, Mars rovers, lunar landers, you would know better than I would. I think this is maybe a theme that might interest you, even though there's a lot of space games out there. This does it a little bit differently in terms of like we said, kind of a more grounded theme with some fantastical elements. The game is called Exploration. It's on Kickstarter. We have a link in the description below. If you're a fan of exploring space, you may want to take a look. Let us know what you think about it in that comment section down below. Thanks for watching. This has been Roll for Crit, and I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Will. And this has been a Roll for Crit preview.
Bye.
Catch the latest from Roll for Crit by liking and subscribing and supporting us on Patreon.
You're not a hidden traitor, are you? Come on, like us.